The state of Texas will execute Kosoul Chanthakoummane on August 17, 2022, for the murder of Sarah Walker. I'm your host, TD, and welcome to Sick World. Sarah Walker was a realtor showing model homes in the Craig Ranch subdivision in McKinney, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. She was last seen at a Bank of America wearing an ornate ring and a Rolex watch at 11:45 a.m. the day of her murder. What you're seeing is the last known footage of Sarah Walker. Her final phone call was with her cousin, Jessica Allen, at 12:30 p.m. Sarah ended the call with her cousin saying someone had just walked in and she'd call right back, but she never did call back. Sarah's body was found within an hour of that phone call. She was stabbed 33 times, suffered a broken nose, fractured teeth, and a bite mark on the back of her neck. The medical examiner later noted that 10 of the 33 stab wounds punctured vital organs or blood vessels, any of which could have been the fatal blow. She put up a fight, but her assailant left her for dead and stole her ring and Rolex, which were never recovered. Investigators started by looking into her ex-husband, but he had an alibi and his DNA did not match the blood left behind by the assailant. Investigators also gathered DNA samples from every person Sarah connected with through her online dating profile, but again, none matched. After a few weeks, the trail for Sarah's killer grew cold, despite full and partial DNA profiles matching a single assailant, until two eyewitnesses came forward, Mamie Sharpless and her husband, Nelson Villavicencio. Mamie Sharpless was also a real estate agent and received a phone call at 9:40 a.m. the morning of the murder from a man who identified himself as Chan Lee. He said he found her number in a Keller Williams advertisement and claimed to be calling from a phone booth. He recently relocated from North Carolina and was staying in room 245 at the in-town suites, so he didn't have a callback number to give her. The phone call supposedly cut out before the conversation ended, so Sharpless tried calling back at the hotel, but learned there was no room 245. Rightfully creeped out at this point, Sharpless brought her husband along in case Chan Lee showed up. After all, weird people buy homes too. As they waited outside the townhouse, they saw a man drive by in a white Ford Mustang and park across from a D.R. Horton model home down the street. They drove to him and asked if he was Chan Lee, to which he said no. Sharpless described Chan Lee as muscular, of Asian descent, and about 5'5" with a buzz cut. She and her husband decided to drive back to the townhouse so she could show it to another potential buyer. Bored, Villavicencio looked out the bedroom window while Sharpless showed the townhouse to the possible buyer, and her husband saw Sarah Walker arrive in her Porsche Boxster and noticed a white Mustang also parked across the street. Sharpless and Villavicencio wound up leaving around 1 p.m. after she showed the home, and both saw the white Mustang parked in front of the model home Sarah Walker was showing. A few weeks later, Villavicencio came forward as a witness. Due to the time that had passed, investigators tried forensic hypnosis on Villavicencio to help him relax and better remember the man who called himself Chan Lee. The police sketch was released to the public and produced immediate results. Another local realtor recognized the man in the drawing. She rented a home to him and previously reported him to the police when he began banging on her door after she refused to let him come in and use her phone. This man was identified as Kosoul Chanthakoummane. Investigators ran a background check on Kosoul and discovered that he owned a white Mustang and had a history of violence, having robbed and kidnapped two elderly people in North Carolina, the same state Chan Lee claimed to be from. Instrumental to Kosoul's conviction was forensic dentistry consultant Brett Hudson, who made impressions of Kosoul's teeth before comparing the impressions to the bite mark on Walker's neck. He found substantial similarities and concluded that Kosoul was responsible for the bite mark on Walker's neck, saying, quote, "within reasonable dental certainty, beyond a doubt." But the most damning pieces of evidence were the full and partial DNA profiles matching Kosoul Chanthakoummane found at the crime scene. His DNA was found on the deadbolt lock, the blinds, the sink, a faceplate, on the floor, and under the victim's fingernails. Some of the DNA was a partial match because of dilution, such as the blood found in the sink, while other DNA was found mixed with the victims, such as samples found under Sarah Walker's fingernails. But the samples most convincing of the suspect's guilt were the full profiles of DNA found scattered throughout the crime scene, undiluted, unmixed, and matching Kosoul's DNA with a likelihood ratio in the billions. His history of theft and violence, combined with eyewitness testimony, a dental match, and the numerous samples of DNA found at the crime scene, were enough for a jury to find him guilty and sentence Kosoul Chanthakoummane to death by lethal injection. Like other capital murder cases, there were years of appeals that pushed his execution date back, even when they tend to be a formality. But in Kosoul's case, there were some truly valid reasons. The first is that the dental forensics were proven to be nowhere near as concrete as previously thought. And the second was the forensic hypnosis technique. That was used during the investigation too, and it's a practice that is still used on a limited basis, but with a great deal of scrutiny surrounding it. And the final reason for Kosoul's appeal was a change in how the DNA match likelihood ratio is determined. Some still believe Kosoul is innocent. The appeal, however, was denied. Although the dental forensics would have hurt Kosoul's chances for a not guilty verdict, the forensic hypnosis is still used to some degree, and in this instance it led investigators to a suspect whose DNA went from being a 16 billion to 1 certainty that he was the killer to a 5 billion to 1 certainty. In Kosoul's case, the weak DNA findings that were diluted remained weak evidence, and the DNA mixed with the victims remained a moderate finding, and the full profile DNA matches remained extremely strong. In the end, I believe Kosoul Chanthakoummane is guilty of murdering Sarah Walker and deserves to pay for his crime. But I also think the state has proven time and time again that they can't be trusted with the power to end someone's life. And please excuse the formatting, but I couldn't fit all the death row exonerations from the past 5 years into one legible column. And I think that says it all.